All right, I think we can kick this off. Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Eric. This is the November 5th, 2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Amanda Barton, Jeff Webb, Yandra Sutter, and Kelvin Yeaton, myself, Joel Adrian. Present from the planning staff is Eric Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of staff, applicant, or others prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested, hear from the applicant and anyone else in favor of the application. Next, we will hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We will then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application, open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, or defer the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54.924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate, make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance of a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good. The character of the district not be harmed by the granting of the variance. With that, I believe we have one item that's been deferred.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. If anybody is here for item B1, 3097 South Shore Drive, that has been deferred by the applicant.
All right. So then our first item would be item A1, which is review of the minutes from the August 6th, 2025 meeting. I do not believe we have the right members present to vote as a majority on that item, so that one will be deferred to next month. Our next item is item A2, which is a review of the minutes from the October 1st, 2025 meeting, and that one can vote on. So if there are any questions about those meetings, those minutes, or is there a motion?
I just want to bring to your attention, members of the board, that item number 4, Southwick Drive, there was a motion made to approve the request with conditions. When the vote was taken place, it failed, and we got kind of caught up in just the moment, and we didn't advance to another motion to either approve or deny. So it's going to be heard again tonight. So that's why the decision, the motion failed. There was no further action in the minutes of that meeting.
Thank you, Eric. So then do we have a motion to approve the minutes from October 1st, 2025?
I'll make a motion for approval.
And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Calvin. So Jeff for approval, second by Calvin. All in favor of that motion?
I in favor.
Favor, any opposed? That motion is approved 4-0. So now we will go on to the next item, which is gonna be A3, which is 106 Cumming Street and 99 St. Philip Street, the Radcliffe Borough. TMS numbers are 460-16-03001 and 017. The zone PUD in Council District 6. Requested variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. Request a special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. And request a variance from section 54-327 to omit the 15 protected trees per acre requirement. Eric.
Yes, this item was
that's
deferred.
And Jeff will
Oh, yes,
recuse himself.
yes.
We might call him.
This item was deferred from last month's agenda at the request of our legal department. If you've been following the news, the site is owned by the College of Charleston, and they're planning to do a development project on it. But there is some knowledge that there's potentially a cemetery or grave sites on the site. BAR did approve the demolition of the structure at 106 Cumming Street. The rest is basically surface parking. So there's some legal matters that have to be addressed, but we got the go-ahead to have the trees addressed because trees may be in the way of using some ground penetrating radar that needs to occur to, during the discovery period of the project. So as shown here, the request is for one grand tree, special exception for one grand, and then there's 5 protected trees being requested for removal. This is obviously the application that was submitted for the October 1 meeting. The letter addressing the hardship test. So you can see here, it's the purple PUD area. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago that there was an effort to working very closely with a developer at the time with the idea of providing student housing. It went through the city's rezoning process, and the rules are governed by that PUD document. This is an aerial showing basically the surface parking lot, the YWCA building, I believe, kind of centrally located there. Grand tree to just north of that, and then another grand tree centrally located, and then the protected trees around the perimeter of the site. So this is the existing condition survey with the building still standing. The 2 blue trees, one is an elm, one is a pecan. We have a live oak protected tree kind of in the northeast, planned northeast, and then laurel oaks and a couple live oaks on the western boundary. The X tree is another elm that when we were on site, I issued a staff level permit to remove that tree because it was full of decay and could potentially land, or if it were to fail, on the parking garage to the east, as well as the fence system that's there. So this is the 21-inch live oak. This would be the northeast tree closer to Vanderhorst. As you can see in the left of this photo, there's a very large switch gear, and a lot of dominion work has to occur if the housing project moves forward. So that tree would be in the way of conduit and what have you. It's just another view. I'll show a letter of support from or consent from the neighbor, but this is a boundary tree at the southeast corner of that accessory structure. The reason for these trees is that there's going to be the need for underground detention, and I'll let the applicant, if need be, get into the site plan. But on the west side, there's basically planned a plaza area and pedestrian mall, if you will, traversing north-south on the site, and the building would be more east, and then also come out toward Cumming Street. This is the 25-inch pecan volunteer tree in pretty good shape, but you can see that it's growing next to an existing masonry wall. This is the elm that staff, you can see the holes in it, and it had a lean toward the parking garage, and there's a walk behind that wrought iron fence. Couple of live oaks, again, of one laurel oak on the western boundary. They own that residential property that's part of the PUD that fronts on Cumming. And then the elm, the wires have been removed already by Dominion. I believe the structure has been removed of electricity, but it had been for years side pruned, and it has a lean to the north, and then being an elm special exception. This is just a letter from Charleston Tree Company. They did their assessment of the trees. Again, severely side pruned, and those wires have since been removed. This is the letter of consent from the property owner at 35 Vanderhorst. So staff recommendations, working with our legal department, there cannot be any land disturbance at this time. They're working toward that with the whole archaeology study and the plan, but staff recommends approval of the trees with the condition that 61 caliber inches of native canopy trees be planted on the project site. Any residual inches could be satisfied in the form of contribution to the city street tree program, provide a landscape plan for staff approval and removal. And just to make it clear that the trees at this point can be cut to stump only, obviously very flush with the ground, no land disturbance until the project is permitted for land disturbance.
All right, thank you, Eric. I'll start. Is there anybody present that is opposed to this application? Seeing no one raise a hand, is the applicant present? Would you like to be heard?
We are here in the event there are any questions.
Okay, all right, and state your name just for the record, please.
There's several of us. Chris Cook with ADC Engineering.
Okay. Let's whoever would talk, just.
Well, okay.
But all right, so then we will close the application to the public and be open to the board for discussion or questions on the applicant.
Since I wasn't here,
It's the first I was looking
it is the
at.
first.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was just on A list because they took it off from last month. They didn't review, they didn't present that.
Because wasn't there a letter from the Preservation Society asking it to be held off?
That's correct. That's why legal advised staff that it could not be heard last month.
And so they're okay with the approach being taken?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Yes, if you look at your summary on comments, which I have
Submitted.
sorry right here.
Yeah, there's no comment.
Yeah, no comments were submitted. So
Because I think it was largely the archaeology component.
that is right. And there's been a lot of advancement on that. Again, the applicant can speak to it, but they're moving forward with the plan. And the city has to agree to the plan and kind of sign off,
Mhm.
if you will.
And Radcliffe, our neighborhood, didn't say anything?
No comments. They were very supportive, I would say, of the rezoning, because what this is going to do is pull students out of the neighborhood and provide necessary housing.
Mhm. And you flew so fast past the tree letter.
Excuse me.
The tree letter went by really quickly.
Oh, you
I
want to
didn't
go
have,
back? You want to look?
I'm sorry, I'm subbing and I didn't have time to go back to the packet that from whatever.
While she's reading. And I guess I didn't see it if it's in there, but were there grades given A, B, C, D on these? I know that when you present.
This particular arborist does not necessarily grade, but the elm, I
Seemed
would,
like they all had
yeah,
issues except for the
Right.
pecan,
Yeah.
which was the volunteer.
Essentially, nothing can happen. Like the archaeological study has to happen and it can't happen without unless these trees are.
And why is that?
what's that?
The because I thought you said specifically related to the ground penetrating radar.
And that's why they want to cut just to the stump. So that machine can maybe roll over the,
Over the
root
location,
system.
okay. Because they already found something there.
I don't know, I haven't kept up with the.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion for approval. Staff conditions.
All right, so there's a motion for approval from Deandra, seconded by Kelvin. All in favor of that motion?
I'm in favor.
I in favor. Any opposed? That motion is approved 4-0. Thank you. And someone want to let, if Jess is sitting out there, get somebody to say, hey, you can come back in.
I guess they want to be able to go back and forth, but it's not supposed to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So special exception.
Is that almost putting places that are like within?
All right, so I'll
Yeah.
read our second item. Jeff has rejoined the meeting. Our second item is going to be A4, which is Southwick Drive on Johns Island. The TMS number 27900000018 is zone DR6 and C. It's Council District 3. Requested variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 18 grand trees. It requests a special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 12 grand trees. Eric.
So again, I apologize for not changing the zoning on this slide, but it is conservation and DR. I think, Amanda, you're fine because we're going to just run through it as if it wasn't heard because there was no action taken last time due to the kind of little hiccup that we had. So anyway, we'll go through it. This is the application. Again, these slides are what were originally submitted by the applicant. So this is the application for Southwick. This is their exhibit A, and they'll get more in depth on this, I believe, when they present their case, variance test, and the special exception. Again, a little bit of history. I don't want to get real deep into this, but this again went through a recent rezoning, I think within the past 2 years. An adjacent developer was looking at this tract of land to continue possibly their neighborhood, which is known as the Hamlet on Maybank, have it continue. So working with our planning department, they came up with this rezoning where they took the freshwater wetlands and actually gave them a conservation zoning, and then high ground a DR6. So that's why it's got the split zoning, if you will, on it. And thinking ahead, they contemplated the required buffer between multifamily and conservation. So there's that buffer is already in place via the rezoning. Totally wooded site, very unique. You can kind of see the different coloration in it, kind of depicting some wetlands and higher ground. It has a man-made ditch that runs north-south from Southwick toward Maybank, carrying public water off of that street. And it just has that little wedge kind of shape to it, or injected into the tract of land. So here you have it. The wetlands, there are a few small impacts that the applicant is pursuing or may even have in hand with the Corps of Engineers. But again, you can see the vast amount of wetlands on the tract of land, the available highland, and of course, the city is requiring that they create additional grid, if you will, on Johns Island. So the neighboring property was designed in a manner to provide two stub outs, one to the north and one on the south side of that angle, if you will. And we're asking that they connect to those. They have the option of going with a public or private road. And in this case, they're going with what we view as a multifamily development. So it's one tract of land with multiple units on it, but in the configuration of single family attached. So we're asking for a public access easement over the north-south road connecting to the hamlet, and then the east-west road on the south side, if you will. So that will provide greater choices for the motorists on Johns Island to traverse across the island without necessarily going out onto Maybank at Southwick. The trees, as you can see, are scattered about. This is a very unique site in the sense that I would assume, based on the soils and the wetland, there's a huge population of loblolly bay, and they're kind of a unique tree. And so we'll take a peek at that. This is just a zoom in on that section of the project. Matt and I and Eliana were out on site. We did discover two missed trees. I'll talk to them. I'll talk about those, which are now shown on their exhibit. Again, offering a little bit of a different housing type. They'll have the amenity center that is wrapped by the freshwater wetland, and then they're providing a couple of buildings that would have either flats or quads, more like an apartment style. And then, of course, these look like property lines, but they just did that for a spatial exercise. They'll just be single family attached units, no fee simple lots. It's just the units will be in a row on basically, private driveways, but a couple of them will kind of read like streets and then have the public access easement over top of them. So Newkirk Environmental Forestry and Land Management did the evaluations on the trees and located the trees, the diameters and species. This is all his data. You can see very few single stem trees out there. I don't know the history. Mac couldn't figure out what the history was, but a majority of the trees are multi-stem with included bark. And again, the species list there: loblolly bay, water oak, a few maples. Matt and myself and Eliana did seek out the southern magnolia, and it ended up being a triple with diameters 11, 10, and 8. And then we were interested in finding the black gum, and that was a 9, 8. So very small stem, but meeting the requirement to measure for grand tree status. A few more trees here. So staff recommended approval last month with the condition to save 30/40/406, which is a hickory, and 32/452, which is a water oak. And those were on the south side of that pond in the lower left. I didn't see any hardship or special exception needed there. So they did remove those from the removal list on their exhibit, which I'll explain here in just a minute. Must plant 599.5 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site in the form of 240 2.5-inch trees. So we want to reforest, come up with a reforestation plan and plant quite a few trees out there. Must use 4-foot chain link fence for tree protection barricades. If non-grant trees at the perimeter of the site adjacent to Southwick cannot be preserved due to grading, then a robust reforestation plan utilizing the mitigation trees must be provided. I'll go back to that plan. So the city is going to require a sidewalk be built on Southwick around that curve. This is becoming a populated area, and there's a lot of new uses and activities coming nearby. The city's going to have a new rec center, a stone's throw away from this. The library is not too far away, obviously shopping at Maybank and Main and Bohicket. So to provide alternative means, we'll have a sidewalk wraparound. So due to the ditch and grading, if those perimeter trees come out and non-grant trees, then we want to really beef up that edge with mitigation trees. Tree mitigation plan must be submitted and reviewed and approved by TRC, and then must place a public access easement on the private drives as shown on the applicant's exhibit and be recorded prior to the final CCCs being issued for the last pot of units. So I'll let the applicant speak to his slide deck, and then I'll explain a couple trees that are a little different than the original site plan.
Before you go up, is there anybody present that's opposed to this application? Okay, very good. So first hear from the applicant and then you'll get to speak.
Good evening, Ryan Blair with Heritage. Good to see everyone again and good to meet you, Amanda. Eric, I sent you a slide deck. I don't know what's original. I think this is the newest one, so.
Yeah, I hope it is. I took it from your last email.
It is, and so this slide deck, we tried to digest the conversation last time and make adjustments based on that conversation. We have one member that was not present, so I'm going to try to go through this as best as possible. Do you have the old slide deck, Eric, or no?
No.
I have it in my pocket. If you could pull it, would you be able to pull it up? Because I think that's helpful.
Why don't we just go through this one? I think this is what you want to do.
Perfect.
I think, yeah, let's do this, and then if need be, we'll go back to the old one.
Okay. So wanted to walk through the history of our application. We initially requested that 18 trees be removed after further coordination with staff, and as alluded to by Eric earlier, 2 of those trees were recommended not to be removed by planning staff, which we agreed. We are further revising the application to remove an additional grand tree and to agree to the condition that Eric suggested for the sidewalk along Southwick Drive. And that tree could only be removed if a sidewalk is required to be placed in that location. Secondarily, for the special exceptions, similar, we initially had 12 grand trees or special exception trees requested for removal. We are revising that to 9. And with conditional approval of 2 of those, which are also tied to that sidewalk installation. And so when you look at the bottom, while this may sound like a lot of trees, there's 137 grand trees on the site. We're preserving 111 of them with a request to remove the remainder. 100% of these trees are rated C or below, with the majority of them D. The majority of these trees, all but one, are multi-stem, which is a presence of either forestation previously, the lack of sunlight or nutrients for the trees, and they're all below the DBH. 0% of these trees requested for removal are live oaks. In our mitigation plan that's required, we would have live oaks and other native trees to replace these. And what we've tried to do is reduce the disturbed area to reduce impervious surface impacts, knowing that this is in a special protection area. So the ordinance requires 909 protected trees to be saved, and we're proposing to save over 2,500 on the site. In our plans, you'll see there's about 2,909 total protected trees on the site that we are saving. We reduced that in our presentation because of the potential sidewalk moving into the site, which is subject to SCDOT's approval. Next slide, please. So here's the plan. Within the background, you can see the yellow trees, which are grand trees that are rated C, orange trees are grand trees that are rated D, and if they have a red circle around them, they are all variances. And those are the ones requested for removal. Also in the background in green are all of the grand trees that we are preserving and saving that will remain on site undisturbed. And then in light gray would be the protected trees, any tree over 8 inches that is being saved and preserved.
Can I just stop there? I just want to point out, so this plan shows the 2 trees on the pond removed. at the city's request, those numbers. And then there was a tree shown here that ended up being a sweet gum. But when we were out staff, we discovered 2 water oaks. So they had them located. One happens to be right in the alignment of that and what being preserved. So that's the difference from the last plan to this plan. And then his proposal for we'll get into the color of trees shown there.
So trying to kind of tie together last time to now, the base plan is shown, and what we've done is we've highlighted the trees that we have taken a look at. One, we tried to digest the conversation and interpret what was being requested or the concerns were from last time. Happy to hear others as well. So I'm going to walk through those, and then Eric and I also went back and forth on a couple of questions of why we couldn't save trees. So I'm going to start from left to right. The tree on the left, we formally requested to remove because that's the only way to get access to the left side of the site. And we are preserving that. We have no intention of developing that side of the site. So we are suggesting we're going to modify the application to not remove that tree and keep it. If for some reason in the future, if that tree needed to be removed or access needed to be provided to that site, we could come back and ask for removal at that time. Secondly, we looked at the grading of number 2, which is in purple, a little to the right of that, and that has less than 6 inches of fill. In our plan, we can make all of the stormwater routing work without getting impervious into the wetlands and capturing it, and we can also maintain that tree. So we're modifying the application to keep that. And then the 3 in red are trees that Eric and I looked at that we don't believe we can keep for a variety of reasons, which I can get into here shortly. So Eric, if you don't mind, go into the next. Oh, sorry. And the blue ones in the back are the ones that Eric had conditioned upon his last conditions he presented to you. So here's an updated tree removal list, just to be accurate. The blue trees are the ones that are being conditioned, and the reds are being eliminated from the request to remove. And this is a picture of the tree that's being saved, and the one in the bottom left corner there. And actually, out of all of them, has one of the largest caliper trunks. This is another one that looks like one tree trunk, but it's actually 2 technically. That is being saved as well. So this tree is challenging to save. It's a D-rated tree. It has fungal fruiting bodies, stem rot. It's a very low quality tree. And one of the challenges that we have with this site is it's in a special protection area. So we are required to utilize the city's drainage area, which not only includes our property, but includes adjacent properties, and capture all of the flow and volume of that stormwater. And we have to reduce it by 50% of what the current existing is. The neighboring developer to the north in the 1980s developed the property with no stormwater controls. So all of the impervious areas run onto our site. And so one of the benefits of this development is we actually are going to capture that and reduce some of that flow downstream. So the challenge is that we have these large surface area ponds with very little depth, which is prevalent in all of Charleston, to capture the water. So it takes up a large portion of the site. So this tree being low quality and within that pond area, there's no way we can meet the pond area requirement while saving this. This is a tree right at the entrance. So one of the challenges of this site, but also a benefit to the neighbors, is we have 2 public access roads that will provide access from the Fenwick Hills neighborhood to the north, also with sidewalks and vehicular access all the way to the rec center and the new city rec center at the park, as well as the retail that is adjacent to Hamlet at Maybank, along Maybank Avenue, which has farmers markets and a variety of things. So it really creates cross connectivity, but we have limited access points where we can connect to. So we connected directly across with a street. So we didn't have challenges with SCDOT's safety requirements. And so the location of that drive lane is limited to that location. And then in the bottom right corner, you can see our cut and fill map. We've got over 4 feet of fill in this area. This is a low portion of the site. And to make all of the grading tie-ins work and to route water to where it needs to go, it's very challenging with 4 feet of fill to save a tree of that nature. And then the fifth one, this is a Loblolly Bay, rated D, similar condition. It has over 3 feet of fill in this corner. We have to route water all the way from the right side of that to our ponds on the left, which is a long distance in the long run. So just to walk through the variance tests themselves, and I apologize to repeat this from last time. But are there any extraordinary or exceptional conditions pertaining to the piece of property? The site geometry is extremely limited. We've got wetlands and zoning boundaries that limit where we can place houses, where we can place roadways, where we can place stormwater controls and other infrastructure. So it creates a challenge to be able to develop a site. And what we have done is we've tried to isolate and reduce the disturbed area. Number two, a public sidewalk is required along Southwick Drive, which is via the zoning ordinance. And that could possibly require the removal of 3 trees, which are conditioned upon that. Number three, once we place these roadways and infrastructure in place, it creates limited areas to put a house with driveways along the streets. And we have multiple single loaded roadways, which is not the most cost efficient design by any means. It's just the challenge of the site. Overall, we try to preserve tree canopy. We're preserving over 62% of the site tree canopy, which is significant and a unique aspect of this site. So variance test number 2, these conditions do not generally apply in the vicinity. I think we have very unique site geometry and zoning conditions, as well as being located within the designated stormwater special protection area. Creates a challenge. There are other properties within the city of Charleston within that, but they don't have the challenge of neighboring properties that have no stormwater controls running onto their property. And this large site allows us to preserve some of the tree canopy by reducing and consolidating area, which I can get into more if you guys have questions. Sorry to sound like a robot. Number 3, the application of the ordinance would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the property. If we were unable to remove these trees, we would be unable to install the required cross-access easements in all the roadways. We'd also be unable to install the sidewalk. And following the installation of these areas, we wouldn't have any available area left for housing. And then lastly, this would not be a detriment to the neighborhood. We are preserving over 62% of the tree canopy. If you look at the site itself and you just look at the number of trees, we've heard some concerns over habitat and nature and animals that are going to be disturbed. We're going to keep over 2,500 protected trees 8 inches or taller, 8-inch DBH or larger, as well as 111 grand trees, as well as install 240 new trees. So if you look at that on a per acre basis, it's about 50 trees per acre. That's a significant amount of trees. It's actually, for a neighborhood, if you look at to the north, they clear cut. The adjacent neighborhood to the right, they clear cut. We will have a significant number of trees relative to every other development in this area. We will also create pedestrian pathways and vehicular pathways to help with traffic. And we are installing a traffic light at our sole cost at the intersection of Southwick and Maybank Drive. I think that's it for me other than questions. I appreciate everyone's time and happy to walk through any questions you guys may have.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else present that wants to speak in favor of the application? And if not, then we'll hear from those that are opposed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Duquette. I was here last meeting. I live on Southwick Drive. I'm a wildlife biologist. I work for the State Wildlife Agency, South Carolina DNR. As you can tell by the shaking in my voice, I do not want to be here. I do not like public speaking, but I am here because I feel like it is my duty to speak up on a couple of points that I have concerns with this development and the request at hand. First off, I just want to point out that I live in the neighborhood and I have many friends and neighbors. in the neighboring area, and nobody has been contacted about this variance as opposed to what was said last time. Not the nearby HOA and not the neighbors. And everyone I've talked to has great concerns with the variance that's being requested. We notice a lot of wildlife and a lot of different species that come in and out of this unique parcel, as that's been said already. It is one of the last few parcel on Maybank that is providing this kind of habitat. Just this morning, I was walking along and I heard over 22 different species of birds, including 4 that are on our State Wildlife Action Plan, our SWAP. I appreciate the efforts that have been put in place already for the protection of habitat. However, I do see some potential here where there is other alternatives. I'm not saying all trees can be saved. I understand the tricky part about access and sidewalks. However, I do see that there's a couple dwellings in place where grant trees are still are standing right now. And so I just want to urge this board to reconsider once again, as you have the last meeting. There are other options, I believe, that you're not being presented with, particularly on the Southwick part, where maybe a little less dwellings could be built and a couple more trees can be saved. And I just, just caution against this narrative that all possible options have been exhausted with this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak against the application? Then the applicant has option to readdress.
Mr. Chairman, before you get started, I did want to bring to your attention that we did have one written comment submitted, if you'd like to read that into the record.
From Peter Rubino, 3009 Tugalo Street, Johns Island, submitted October 29th, 2025. I'm against the request to remove 18 grand trees. As you are aware, we cherish our trees on Johns Island. To remove 18 is not what we would like to see. Also, if by chance this request is approved, we request that any mitigation for the removal must be planted on Johns Island. If the trees are removed on Johns Island, then the mitigation should always be done on Johns Island. That's it.
Yes.
Thank you, and we appreciate the desire to preserve nature, which is what we try to do. We try to be stewards of the land. And yes, we may be able to save one additional tree with a significant reduction of housing in that area, which would require us to then utilize the entire left side of the site, which is about 3.6 acres that we are preserving and have the right to develop. And we try to consolidate that area. There's actually, you look at the left side and the purple left tree, we purposely tried not to extend the roadway over to that side of the property. There's 85 protected trees that we're preserving by not putting housing over there and consolidating it in a certain area. And if you go further to the north of that, there's an additional 120 protected trees that we are not disturbing. And the idea behind this, and this exhibit was in our initial presentation, was looking at the contiguous adjacent neighbors and the atmosphere that they have behind their houses. And if you look at the houses to the plan north, all of those neighbors will continue to have undisturbed acreage behind them. That is also true for the Hamlet at Maybank development, where we are preserving the woods and nature behind them. And we do not believe that the removal of 26 trees will inhibit the habitat or nature of this area with a significant amount of preservation that's going on in the rest of the site. And for the comment, if I can respond to that was written, we are planning to install the mitigation on site. We would make that a condition, or we can make it a condition to install on Johns Island. We think that's a fair and great request.
Thank you. The public portion of this application has been closed and it's open now to the board for discussion and questions. And I guess I'll start. When presented last month, I was in favor of the application. Looking at the site and seeing the large pockets that are being left undisturbed, whether it's required by wetlands or, as was just mentioned, that left side just remaining. I think that has been very sensitive, looking at well, these residences are, maybe there's slight impact here, but there's nothing happening there. This shields all of this below. The unique shape of the lot, I think it really does meet that hardship test of all 4 points. And the amount of fill that has to come in places to make things, there's just so many things happening. At the end, all the water coming to this point, them having to take care of what others did not in the past. And the fact that they're doing that, still developing is kudos to them and required, but glad they should see, Johns Island should see improvement stormwater when this is built. So I guess that's my 2 cents on it.
I mean, the story right now is that wouldn't be developed, and that's a hard fact for this, but what's to stop them from developing that later?
My question.
I also know that it seems like there's a variety of, numbers of units, and I do agree. I think there could still be a little more massaging in a couple of these, just saving a few more trees to open up and allow those, playing with your ratios of units, how they're laid out to save a few more.
Where are you looking at? The ones that the blue on top?
Like they're ones that are kind of straddling. And obviously I know there's other factors with that, but I think what's the max density for this site and what are you at? Mila?
Yeah.
Sorry, so the maximum density is 164 units. What is proposed is 158. And the reason we did that is because prior to us acquiring the property, Habitat for Humanity and the contract purchaser had a deal for the donation of land. And that's not a condition of our purchase. We were unaware of it, but we were trying to honor that as a potential. So that's why we had 6 units less. And we would donate that land to Habitat for Humanity. But yes, we are maxed out in density if you incorporate the donation to Habitat. But it is consolidated to a certain area versus running to the left.
So the fact that you're 6 units shy of the max really is what prohibits that expansion in the future.
Correct. In order to expand in the future would require rezoning because we would be capped at the density allowed by the DR6 district.
So when you're talking about land donated to Habitat for Humanity, which is that? And is that to Habitat for building? Are they building houses?
Correct, yes. And so that would be in the top left corner, very top left corner, 1 acre. Which is why another reason we showed that we would save 2,500 protected trees. There's 2,909 on site. That incorporates that if that potentially happened, or the sidewalk donation, or excuse me, the sidewalk installation along Southwick.
So we're seeing the Habitat.
The Habitat is not on here. I was trying to tell you, it's not, we don't know if they want it or not. It was brought to our attention that that was part of the prior contract purchaser.
So it's this area up in here, the 1 acre.
I'll go right
Yeah.
in this one. So it's this little area right here.
And how is that accessed? Or would it be?
There's a right of way that's stubbed right here. So that you
Oh,
can see the
okay.
line.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I see.
Got it, right?
Yep.
Eric, go back.
So they're right where Stanwick makes that 90-degree turn.
Mhm.
The right of way does dip into this tract a little bit.
Okay.
That's great.
So from our perspective, we're trying to sell the conservation of land. We have no problem putting some condition to preserve this area. I would like to preserve the area for habitat in that top corner in some fashion, so we can honor that. there's a multitude of ways that it's done. I mean, we're at 158 units already, so we're capped by the zoning. So a rezoning would have to happen, which would come back to the city for approval. We have advertised that we would save 2,500 protected trees. If that was made a condition, it would make it inevitably impossible on the left side to develop. And we are not trying to make statements here and then do something different. We're just trying to be stewards of the land, consolidate and build housing within the area.
Trees that you pointed to. So that's variance. These are special exception. That's exception.
Limits in the road.
Mhm.
I think it's,
I think the lower orange that you pointed to with the grading for the pond
Mhm.
and then the filling for the lot. I don't see that working.
Going back to the 1 acre habitat area, those are just protected trees up there. Those aren't grants.
The greens are grands, I believe.
Grants, so that wouldn't require a variance if it was going to be developed and they're over their protected amount.
I have no way of knowing at this point from a staff perspective of whether they would do a horizontal regime or want fee simple lots and we'd have to extend the road, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, there would definitely be tree impact, but not, doesn't appear to be a variance.
If it's just getting in there, you're getting. You're going in between 2 grants.
This is mostly the high ground being developed, like wetlands are being left alone.
Yes, the easiest way to look at this is the right side of the site. We have a JD letter that's jurisdictional wetlands, so the bottom and then the right, and then the left side is non-jurisdictional. We have less than half an acre of impact to, and it's really the roadways. If you look at the crossings, we've minimized the wetland impacts and took them to the pinch points to try to minimize wetland impacts. So that's predominantly the wetland impacts. And then highlands that are being saved is 3.6 acres on the left side. Contingent on habitat, if they develop, that would shrink to 2.6.
So I think the question that Deandra brought up, that one tree. And my eyes are going bad, but this one here is 32,752, and it was a water oak, a 922 grade C. And I'll look at those two in just a moment, but I remember we talked about that same tree last year,
Yeah,
and I made a note here.
it's good, like, yeah, again, massaging the plants a little bit better.
So Eric, do you mind going
And that was
to?
mostly the root conflict with the sidewalk layer.
What's that?
did you go to
Can you mind go to page 10?
On your
exhibit?
The blue ones, that DOT's gonna
So this
initially have to
maybe
go.
tough to
with
see.
that sidewalk, which is required to be there.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry, this may be tough to see without being close, but each of these boxes dictates where a tree is located. So the left box on the bottom right image shows the fill amount. There's 3 feet of fill over that tree, which is very challenging. And it would also reduce the density, which we would have to then find an alternative place for the housing, which would go to the left, and we would disturb the area of affected trees, which is significant.
Yeah, we don't allow tree wells anymore
Right.
because they haven't done it very well.
So this is tree 4157. This is the tree that Matt and Eliana sought out to find, and it was listed as a black gum. And it is a 11-10-8. And if I had the picture of it, which is probably on my phone, one stem was like
It's like the-
arching, yeah, it was like crazy arching.
What about the amenity trees? I know they're Ds, but
The amenity trees, interesting enough, Eliana, Matt and I visited those trees. They're in a line. I believe they're all three are water oaks, multi-stem. The ditch is just, the ditch that traverses north-south, coming kind of almost in line with Brunswick Drive. Traverses just left of those trees. So we went and saw those and they were water oaks. And then the southern magnolia is that lower yellow one. We made a point to find it. So the ditch kind of runs down here. It's on the other side of the ditch, right on the edge of the wetland, and it was a triple. Kind of little small tree in the woods. But it's measured up at the beach.
back to like just the full plan. It's-
Note that the health of the trees is important, but it's not always the determining factor. Single stem, multi-stem. You know, there usually seems to be when there's multi-stems, there's deep branch unions, there's all this other stuff that goes on with them. That if preserved, and then if there's other impacts, that they don't do well. I don't know, I think that again, looking at that site and thinking about the fourth, is there impact to the public and good, and you know, you're driving down these roads and for the most part you don't even know something's happening in there until you get to the bend. And that's where it's opened, and that is most likely the sidewalk is going to get put in, and it's going to have to be reforested.
I think the ones adjacent to the community center, if they're not well ranked, they're too close to too much public activity.
Right. Deep.
They're, especially if they get more compromising and stuff. Safety wise.
Any other questions of the applicant? So last time when the motion was made, it was just straight. I feel like we should at least maybe break it out and do special exception, which has a very different test. Which basically just means that trees located where a driveway needs to go, or a roadway, and then have the variance trees separated out. That's just a suggestion. And then obviously looking at it, and if you felt like there needed to be additional restrictions, you could go back and say, like Eric is saying, must preserve 30406, Hickory, 32542, Water Oak. You felt strongly about keeping something, should mention it. Although I think that what the applicant said is true, is that if we preserve this, then he's got the right to push somewhere else. And so is that disturbance greater than the loss of one? Any questions? Or does someone want to make a motion?
I'd like to just suggest that however you all go to reference that last exhibit by the applicant, where he's modifying to save 2 trees, and then the blue trees could be saved if the sidewalk works out. And then we would adjust the mitigation accordingly, but
And is that exhibit, is item 1 reflected on that exhibit?
no, that was based on the original site plan, and to just be clear, this plan by the applicant, after taking your advice and hearing your comments from last, he dropped those 2 trees off that pond lower right. So those were the 2 that I was conditioning that had to be saved. So they're now being saved. And then we discovered the 2 water oaks. And then he's proposing the additional 2 more saves, plus the blue trees.
You certainly could take that exhibit and make it a condition that is part of any motion.
And we could also state that it definitely needs to be mitigated in here, nothing to the tree bank or anything.
I think Eric says on site, right? Go back to your conditions.
That's it, sorry.
Um,
Did the Johns Island Commission look at this at all?
I don't think the applicant can speak unless you address him, but he did meet with John's Island Task Force.
Okay, that's what they're calling now. Okay.
Yes, I think number 2 addresses that they will be planted on site. It doesn't give the option of street tree bank.
Yep.
Well, they are gonna be required to have tree plantings, I would assume.
Well, they're private drives, so some
They can go
Okay.
to it.
there's some parallel parking being proposed. There's some,
But some of the mitigation could be in the form of street trees then.
it can be
on site.
throughout the site, correct? However, if the edge along Southwick, plan north kind of gets denuded of trees due to the grading and sidewalk work and ditch filling, whatever becomes, then they got to concentrate a good amount of the mitigation there to reforest that edge.
Last month, we were talking about a couple of those blank upland areas.
Okay.
You know, in those corners and adjacent to the Lindy Center. Would be a blank space there and there. And around those are apartments or something. That can all be candidates.
Now, do we need to stipulate that, or is that just something to address at TRC?
We would address that at TRC. Landscape plan is one of the conditions.
So Joel, if we did special exceptions, how would we handle mitigation? I guess
It's all the same. It would be just breaking it out. If you want,
So-
you can
so
really
if
do
it-
the motion for everything that's being requested as one. I just know that after last month's meeting, I thought could have broken it out because special exception is basically, yeah, you see that tree that's in the driveway or in the roadway needs to come out. You know, even I think that you did a great job showing like the 3, 4, 5 cannot be saved and explaining, you know, the conditions there. And then even just looking at those trees and seeing their form and what they were is that they're worth saving. They were in such bad form and condition that keeping the large forested areas to me makes much more sense.
I would ask another question. Did you look at any underground detention in these larger parking lot areas to help reduce surface area for ponds, and then that might help to save some trees.
Yeah, so prior to foolishly becoming a developer, I was a stormwater engineer. And the depth that we have, just due to this site being so flat and the outlets required, the challenge with the wetlands, specifically the stormwater, is we've got to run pipe so far to get the water to flow from that top corner. So it creates challenges for underground detention because we don't have enough depth before you hit groundwater. And while we may be able to fluff the engineering to say that it works, it's really not going to work because half of it's going to be filled up with water all the time.
Yeah.
And we think that this solution is actually a viable, good solution and better for Johns Island.
All right, seeing y'all's hands.
Well, I kind of like the idea of the special exceptions. I mean, I don't know if that,
Make that motion first if you'd like.
yeah, so I'll make a motion for approval with staff recommendations relative to the special exception trees. That count is 12 grand trees with the calculated mitigation inches associated with those trees, right?
Yes, it could be reduced to 9, depending on
What happens with the sidewalk?
sidewalk. So we just referenced that.
Yeah,
Exhibit.
So those fall in that category, right? They're special exceptions. Again, so that included the conditional trees and their associated mitigation
Depicted on the tree removal exhibit.
depicted on the tree removal exhibit we are looking at.
So to be clear,
To
be clear, you're splitting the variances versus the special exception.
Yeah, we're attempting to make a motion on the special exception
Okay.
trees,
Okay.
which is inclusive of the conditional blue trees. And I'm not doing the math on the mitigation, but that's what the intention is, that the associated mitigation. And other staff conditions, I believe, as well. I don't think there's
Yes.
anything that, yeah, and all other staff recommendations.
Is that a motion?
Friday.
That is the motion. The motion is for,
Okay, I'll second the motion.
right, so on the special exception trees, Jeff has made a motion for approval, seconded by Amanda. So we'll vote on that issue. And we'll just go, maybe we'll do one at a time, say Calvin. Okay, so Calvin's in favor of Deandra. All right, Jeff,
I favor.
Amanda, and Joel votes with the majority, so those are approved. Now, do we need discussion about the variance please?
You see tree is still,
Has some life on it.
yeah, so I kind of like to see some massaging of those areas. But I also don't want it to be that way. We're talking 2 trees.
Mhm. I like that one tree was one we talked about.
Right, because they're not required to. Yeah, they can shift over.
I'd rather this area stay protected.
That left side, upper left.
I think it does more for wildlife, but to be more
Contiguous.
contiguous to each other rather than isolated.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can put in the motion, you can say, you know, with special, even though Eric will do it anyway, TRC, you know, special attention to certain areas. Concentrate, you know, to concentrate the planting.
Are there? Can you point the specific variance ones that you're having hiccups on? Is That tree.
No, I think that one,
The variance ones have the
Red
red
circle.
circle.
That's a red circle.
yeah, I mean,
Lot, that's, you know, lot here.
maybe that one, but it's way in the road, so I don't. Like,
I will say, I think we did talk about 1 and 2 last month.
These two.
Yeah,
Right.
because they were so kind of out at the edges.
but again, if trying to keep this one pushes every,
But right now, the purple still is in the request, but you're gonna try, they're gonna, it's a tenant
We've agreed to save those.
completely.
The purpose is
Okay.
save. They said there was only 6 inches of fill required in the
Okay.
area. They can make that
I
happen.
can feather it.
So tree number 2, you just approved for removal, a special exception. The purple one that you just
Yep.
pointed at
Yep.
is a water oak. Tree number 1 that he proposed to modify and save is a maple, so that's a variance.
Is that shadow or is that,
It's a double trunk, it's just that close.
I'm talking about the last one, or was that not? That's not feasible.
That's a water oak
Yep, yep.
in the pond, that's a special exception.
Didn't we just approve to have number 2 removed?
That's a special exception tree, yes.
Yeah, well, our intent is to keep that.
Yeah,
Right,
they're-
they want to keep it.
I guess I'm more, when I'm looking at the yellow, which is the grade C. The one between the lots. With the amount of fill, I don't see,
But you would lose a lot of units.
you'd either lose a lot of units. Or you'd, we know what happens if you try to do the well, which wouldn't be. And then the one down to the left a little bit, it's so close to the road. How much, again, how much construction damage will that have? And then the one down at the bottom is definitely in the road, looks like.
Can we have more stipulations about not being able to develop on the other parcel, or the other side, the left side?
I think
About
that,
that too.
I think the fact that it has to go to rezoning.
They said that they would have to go to rezoning, and I don't think we can prohibit someone from using property that. Isn't under some sort of other type of
Covenant or anything.
covenant or state requirement. Because then we're prohibiting them from using their property.
I think that would only come into play if the habitat lot was, if the habitat spaces weren't taken, then they've got 4 units under the current zoning, right?
I think it was.
6. It could go over there in a different form.
Mhm.
But the access could remain up top, it wouldn't have to cut through.
Right, but then it's plowing through the log books.
Do we wanna give this one a shot, motion? I guess specifically saying that tree 1 would be required to be saved.
Well, they're willing to modify too. And then if they modify, say if we can remove other trees requested. And we already approve the ones for special exception, so it's the rest of the variance. In which case, that means they would be saving 3-1.
We need to specifically say it. Because we didn't specifically say save 2. So I think if there is a motion for approval, we say 3-1 on the exhibit.
We can clean that up. I mean, I tried to reference this exhibit, but didn't specifically call that.
Eric, just for the record, it's my understanding, as the applicant has voted that 3-2 would be saved in the special exceptions, just so it's heard.
All right. I think, I mean, looking at it, the ones that we're concerned about that could potentially be saved, it seems that we've talked ourselves out of the realization of that being true.
Sure. So a motion to staff approval for.
A motion to approve variance 3s per the staff conditions
Including tree 1 on this exhibit.
to be saved.
You're saying make a motion to approve with staff recommendations,
But we save
saving tree number 1
Yes, I
on the
think so.
applicant's exhibit.
on the applicant's tree removal exhibit, right?
Yes. Just let's see that.
Is that your motion?
Sure. Yes.
Motion from Deandra is approval to remove the variance trees with staff conditions, the additional condition of saving tree 1 on the tree
Yes.
removal exhibit provided by F. Yeah, then
Yes.
On today's date, probably should say.
Yeah.
11/5/25. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
That's Deandra's, seconded by Amanda Parkman. And again, we'll just go individually. Start with Belvin.
Approved.
Approved, Jeff.
I in favor.
I'm in favor.
And I'll vote with the majority, those are approved as well. Thank you. All right. We'll now move on to item B2. This is B1 was deferred by applicant. Item B2 is 126 Romney Street. It is north central. The TMS number is 463-1203111. Is zone CT and counts as District 4. Requested variance from section 54-347 to reduce the 5-foot landscape area and wall required adjacent to incompatible zoning. And request a special exception from section 54-511 to allow a non-hard parking surface. Eric.
I am bad. I'm sorry. I did not change this slide. I cut and paste and I apologize. This is zone CT, not PUD. This is the application 126 Romney Street. This is the letter submitted by the applicant addressing the hardship test and the special exception. So this property just recently went through a rezoning in which city council ratified. This is proposed, it's a vacant lot today with a couple of perimeter trees. Though the history is as to when an existing structure was demolished and how long it's been in this condition, but there is a need for parking to support a church down the street that has no parking. And the city, as well as city council, recognize the need that it's very important to get that building occupied and viable. But it doesn't have all but I think 2 parking spaces on it. So it's being converted to office, so it needs nearby parking. So the applicant was able to secure this lot. And here's a photo street view of it. And this is his presentation of his plan. So then it's subject property for 1091 King Street parking. just the construction kind of C-SWIP page, if you will. So it's tight. You would pull in, you would park on an angle, and then kind of maneuver your way around and get yourself out. Handicap space being provided. This is his exhibit of the auto turn. So to dress it up, because it was rezoned CT and it's adjacent to residential zoning, it requires a 5-foot landscape area to be planted with a canopy tree every 25 feet and provide a wall. Obviously, it's very tight, so in order to get that maneuverability and access the parking spaces, he's providing the sawtooth kind of landscape on the east side and basically nothing on the west side. And then again, due to the neighborhood being somewhat residential on that street in this particular area, in lieu of adding asphalt and creating more to the urban heat island, he proposes a soft or a non-hard surface, if you will. The handicap space obviously would have to meet handicap accessibility, what have you. So he's proposing the use of Everclear lacebark elm or palm in those sawtooth areas, very upright lacebark elm. That's what's planted in the raised median on the crosstown. Wanting to be a good neighbor and provide a street tree out front of the project. Here's some additional details and plans. This is a letter from the neighbor of support, Michael Rabin. This is a letter from the North Central Neighborhood Association supporting it as well. This is the city exhibit. So I'd like to have in the access aisle, just massage it a little bit. I don't know the exact dimensions for a van accessible versus just a standard handicap, but add the elm in that 5-foot landscape strip, if you will, with a few shrubs as shown. Work with parks on what species. It could be a crepe out front in lieu of a live oak or what have you. And then alternate palm, elm down the east side instead of just one or the other. So I think it would be kind of neat to have a little diversity there. So staff recommends approval to plant the landscape plan as must add one Everclear lacebark elm in front parking lot island as shown on the city exhibit. And for the sideline planting to be alternate elm palm. And then if the existing hackberry is in decline in the parking lot island, that large one, then that gets planted with a cathedral or high-rise live oak.
Excellent, Eric, thank you.
Can we go back to the map?
The
Something that shows the addresses.
He's on the east side.
All right. Okay, is there anybody present that is opposed to this application? Okay, so that's there. We will first hear from the applicant. And then anyone.
Great. Thank you. My name is Michelle Smith. I'm here on behalf of the owner and representing the applicant, Tyler A. Smith. We are residents of the city of Charleston. We reside at 386 Ashley Avenue. We are requesting a variance to allow commercial parking at 126 Romney Street without the required 5-foot landscape buffer to the east and west property boundaries. The property is currently vacant, as you can see, and zoned commercial transitional, which allows commercial parking use. The principal purpose of this parking facility would be to serve a nearby structure at 1091 King Street, which Mr. Schultz talked about. It is no longer a church. It is being renovated into a commercial building. And as such, it has required parking for it. This original building at 1091 King Street was originally built as a schoolhouse in 1992, and it's been vacant for more than 10 years. Sufficient parking here will allow the building to be sufficient parking at 126 Romney will allow this building at 1091 King Street to be put back into service. So put back into service for office and a light retail food service use. We are in a unique situation here where we are owners of both properties. And after extensive research into understanding the parking requirements of 1091 and understanding the immediate area within a 400-foot radius, we recognize the parking hardship that would come with redeveloping 1091 King Street. This building at 1091 King Street was originally permitted with no on-site parking. For a time, it had a lease on parking at 1082 King Street, which is the mosque across the street. This is no longer available as an option for the building. We worked with City Council and got the rezoning approval, their rezoning approval to commercial transitional and support with the neighborhood association with the intention to use this lot at 126 Romney to park as many as 18 vehicles, which is the requirement for 1091 King Street. The requirement to permit vehicles to turn around within this narrow lot has reduced the actual number of spaces to 16, including one accessible ADA space. We believe that the proposed site design meets the application of the variance test, and the strict application of the landscape buffer requirement would result in unnecessary hardship and more cars being forced to park on the street using limited street spaces. Again, I would like to stress that we worked with the neighborhood association even before we went to the rezoning of 1091 King Street to present the understanding of these two developments working together as sister developments. So just to take you through the variance test, number one, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Like I mentioned before, 126 Romney is the only option within 400 feet of the 1091 property that is available for parking the number of vehicles required for the proposed use of 1091 King Street. The length of 126 Romney is extraordinarily deep for its block, varying from 195 feet to 215 feet. It is 35 feet wide, which is wide enough to accommodate the required vehicles using a 60-degree parking without the side buffers. There are 3 protected trees on the property, all on the eastern margin. These can be integrated into the parking design and retained along with enhanced landscaping along the eastern margin, which is shown in this proposed plan. Locating the access drive to the eastern side, the western side would not be, locating the access drive to this eastern side would require the removal of the trees with the, and the desire, and we desire to not have to remove any trees nor impact any root zones for trees that should remain. Number 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity as outlined above. This is the only available property within the zoning area appropriate to permit parking for the 1091 property. 3, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The requirement for the full 5 feet buffers to the east and west would mean that fewer than the required number of off-street parking spaces would be accommodated on the property as originally intended. The landscape integrated with the proposed parking along the street and to the east will provide an enhancement from the existing with additional trees and shrubs and a street tree in the front of the property. And number 4, the authorization of the variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed in the granting of the variance. So for this property, and we understand it's a unique request because it is working in tandem with the development of this other property, 1091 King Street, For 126 Romney, commercial parking is a permitted use for the property. Parking a larger number of vehicles will take more vehicles off the street and permit a long vacant site to be used. Sorry, it will provide a long vacant building in 1091 to be repurposed. Improved landscaping along the street and eastern boundary will benefit the appearance of the property. As a groomed gravel parking facility, the property will no longer be a fodder for occasional complaints from a neighbor about times when it has been perceived to be overgrown. So developing, in our opinion, developing the property into a parking lot creates less of an eyesore than an abandoned lot, an undeveloped lot, which it currently is. For these reasons, we believe that the variance meets the variance test and respectfully ask that it be granted.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present that'd like to speak in favor? And those that are opposed can speak.
I'm Heidi Brown and I own the lot to the west. And can we go back to another slide that shows where the houses are on this lot, please? If I may walk up. This is my house here. And behind is a new house that is being built with considerable time and expense. When I originally started to build that house, I wanted to put it on the west side of the property where all the from this property to King Street, all the houses are on the west side. And Mr. Smythe was the only person who opposed it, said it should, because I had to go for a variance, he wanted it on the east side of the property. So this very board said that if there is an adjacent owner that opposes the project, the board is compelled to deny. So now I have this house and a brand new house being built right now, and the house is 3 feet from that property line. This piece of property, which was residential, and the entire area, except for one piece of property between King and Meeting Street, where this is residential. And everyone in that small residential area, which is one of the Black communities that are listed in the revised master plan for Charleston to be protected, we now have a parking lot going in the middle of a residential area. And I think the very minimum that should be done here is to provide a 5-foot planting buffer, which is not much, and a 6-foot wall, which is not much, to protect my property. I know what is going to happen here because I see it on the other side. There are going to be people there on that lot that are going to back up and run into my brand new house. I have no plans on, there are no plans on whether there's lights in here, anything to protect the windows from in the middle of a residential area. Will there be lights lit? Will there be traffic at night? Will there be cars? What is my protection when someone runs into there? So I think that I think it's great that they're renovating a building on King Street, which is more than 400 feet away by car, and that's who's traveling to this is cars. I think that's great and commendable. But I think if a request is made to put a parking lot in the middle of a residential area, that there should be some respect and care taken to the adjacent property owners. And putting up a 6-foot fence and a 5-foot barrier to protect my property is the minimum that should be done. So I ask you to show me the respect that was shown to him as an adjacent property owner and deny this request. Thank you.
All right, anybody else opposed that would like to be heard? No.
Seth Fisher, I'm also a property owner at 120, yes. This is right next to a residential zoned area. And I think that should be the most important thing to protect the residential area. If a commercial parking lot is right next to it. So I'm against it, and I think you should also deny the request. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant now has opportunity to give a rebuttal.
Just a few clarifications in our response. You know, we understand that when the application to develop a second structure at 128 Romney was submitted, that the applicant actually requested the variance because of a tree, the presence of a tree on the west side of that property. We did not request that the structure be moved closer to the east side and closer to the property of 126 Romney. We also thought it was interesting that in that application, the dwelling was pushed further north toward a commercial zoning property, which the applicant was well aware of.
All right, thank you.
I would like to remind the board that we do have the zoning here is commercial transitional, and a parking lot is an approved use. Thank you.
Thank you. The public portion be closed and be open to the board now for discussion and questions. Eric, can you put the picture up of the houses on each side? Maybe I missed, might have been writing a note. And so I'm going to ask a question of you, ma'am. So your house is the one on the left?
Correct, and the new house is.
There's already a fence there?
It's not shown in this photograph, but it's almost
Right.
completed.
So this is.
You mean the house is almost completed?
That's my house,
Your house, your existing fence.
yes,
All right, so the
and
wall
there's
is
a new
there.
house behind, correct, the walls.
So the wall's there that would keep the cars from moving onto your property. Okay, thank you.
It does that, what it looks like a 5-6 foot fence? Does that go all the way back to the rear of? Does it go to the rear of the lot in between?
There's a fence, but it's constantly being run into, so. My concern, if there's not a 5-foot barrier and another fence inside their property line to protect my fence, there's going to be constant damage. And the new house in the back is 3 feet from the property line. 3 feet. And if they hit my fence and knock it over, it's going to damage that new house. And so I just, look, it's going to be a parking lot. It's a parking lot for a piece of property that's not in the neighborhood. But at least put up a fence within 126 Romney Street property and put up the minimum, a 5-foot barrier to protect my houses from the noise, the lights, the doors slamming, just the general things that happen with a parking lot. And now this is a parking lot smack dab in the middle of a residential area. So
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
just asking for just the bare minimum to show respect to the neighborhood.
Okay, Romney Street isn't one way there, is it?
No.
Why can't we flip the parking lot?
So she had mentioned that flipping it, then the existing trees along the right side was
Well,
likely
their
to
problem,
get
that's right.
taken down because of where that drive aisle would be.
So as it's drawn, you come in on the left side, pull, the headlights are
Are
to the
going
right.
towards the house with the attic.
Well, the house with the X, is that demolition?
It's just-
Or what?
That's a
Fire
thing that
department
fire
sounds
comes on,
yeah.
yeah.
The headlights are going this way.
Headlights would go that way.
And the trees are, yeah. I mean, 'cause that would alleviate a lot of the issue.
Eric, are they not proposing a wall on that?
They're not, it's written in here to omit, and I don't
Okay, I
know
thought it
why.
was the buffer reduction.
Yeah, I don't know why the wall would need to be omitted on either end if you put up the parking lot design.
Yeah, what's the requirement on the wall, Eric? Is it 6 foot opaque? Is it supposed?
So it just states,
If it were
Yeah.
the standard,
it states wall. So.
not fence.
We've been kind of a little, if it's a very stout and typically BAR approved fence, then we allow it.
Can you do 8 feet up there?
Because, to dig a foundation, so the
So
support.
we're not in BAR land, are we?
No, for demolition you are, but not for.
Right, so you can't do an 8-foot fence technically.
CT, I'd have to look into whether or not CT may allow a taller fence.
Because you are allowed to in the other BOR districts to go 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a,
Then that would be a zoning variance.
that's the outline of the new structure right there.
Yeah.
I don't
That's part of my house.
see that, if they came even just a foot off, 6 inches off, and had to put another wall in. I could see that, and I don't know that it stops cars from trying to make, if you bring it, there was an auto turn that they provided, Eric. I think thought I saw that, on one of the video, and,
So you said it was office use for the other property with,
Correct, with a retail space.
So daytime use. How are you regulating parking? How would this be regulated? Just tow company?
Yes.
Are you proposing any lighting?
We're not gonna have any
State your
lighting.
name, please.
Excuse me, my name is Tyler Smith. We were not proposing any lighting because we felt like that might cause more issues of lighting in the lot at night. Although we could do lighting if that was something that would be desired.
No, just.
thank you.
Do we have grades on the trees we're trying to save?
They're just protected, right?
and we'd lose a parking space or two if we tried to flip it. Right, yeah,
Oh,
right, because see how it's the sort of trapezoid at the end there?
I don't think so. I think the geometry of the lot is square or rectangular at the end. This is
Written out.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we flipped it, we were just saying, what's the quality of those other plant materials, could you just flip the lot? But
No, but what I'm saying,
Doesn't work.
in the property line there,
No,
couldn't you just mirror
I
it?
think there's.
Is that right,
That's
Chris?
the
It
right
is. It's-
geometry. That's the reflective geometry of the lot. It's angled.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an idea. Anyway,
Maybe,
Clearly, you didn't plat that.
what do you thought about
right,
that?
if it was flipped, then cars are pointing towards the house.
Yeah, I think the cars are pointed in that direction. All the headlights are going away from her property.
So the limited, so the small retail is daytime? Or you don't know?
We don't know.
We don't know.
And y'all said 18 spaces. Was that a initial requirement or is that what you just hope to get? Y'all have to get 16? I mean, where is this?
The 18 spaces is the requirement by zoning to provide parking for the other building. The rear does have an unusual shape to it. It backs up to a 25-foot wide gravel parking lot that serves the building on King Street that it's appended to. That's an existing commercial parking lot, closer to which the new building that was referred to was moved by zoning with a zoning variance.
So hold on, so the parking lot where you have decals, they're required to be in the, because if it's a retail use, then if it's office use, you could have decals that need to be displayed in the vehicle or tags or something.
Yeah.
Then the tow company would know what to take and what to get out so that it limits the disturbance throughout the day.
So did I get that right, that if you go straight out the end of your parking lot, you're meeting another parking lot?
If we went straight out of the back of it, we would be meeting what is used as a private parking lot. It's a 25-foot wide access. It's private property. I've approached that owner to ask if we would be able to use it. They've said no, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You
or
see-
you could use,
It's an old rail line. You see how it's curved?
yep. Yep.
That's being used as like parallel parking in there.
So you don't have so the commercial transitional is encompassing that whole block?
Just that one lot. Got rezoned.
Just the property, not the rest of it's residential.
There are other lots on the property that have a commercial zone. There's a lot at the very end that's limited business. The lots along King Street are GB. So it is mixed zoning.
All right, so let me ask the question of the civil people here, because
Yeah.
if they were required to plant even just low growth something here and some jasmine that's going up this new fence, it took up 2 feet.
Or even a,
You could get some plantings in there, you could get your fence adjacent to her fence. And I think that parking lot still works, as it looks like.
I don't see losing space in there. Especially since you're basically like enabling and backing out essentially.
what's your curb cut with?
Yeah, wait, see it up there, yeah. Probably, yeah, 10 or 12.
I believe it's 10 to 12 feet. I don't know as we stand here.
It's on the drawing. It looks, it's so small, it looks like it's 12.
It kind of looks like, which is generous for them.
It's 12
Reminds me
feet.
of Probably beach access.
12.
You got the wood, fence
Yeah,
on each
you look at
side.
that, Jack, you look at that graphic scale, and from 0 to first number is 10, that looks wider than that. So he's right, it's probably 12 feet.
So we surprised with it.
I mean,
Or that,
I,
or it just.
Not for a wall, but
What were the existing trees again?
hackberry and 2 ornamentals, I think.
And all the hackberries are dying. Around town. Just mentioning it.
I was thinking the same thing, if you could make a little shift to accommodate.
Or just flip it, but then the lights are going towards the residents.
Um,
and this is a new curb cut that you're, or it's
I
existing.
think
We're trying to repurpose the existing curb cut.
It's on the page.
Yeah, it says new wood fence. Mhm.
All right, so the lot's 35 feet wide. Right,
Mhm.
so the 60-degree parking, 18-foot space, where down does that kick in? Like, how much of that
your
35 is
trigonometry
it?
there.
Can we go back to
Honestly,
the,
I'll do this all day, don't
we
you?
go to the auto.
You got to do it in AutoCAD, I don't do that math.
Like, what is my real driveway width? You know, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know, that one looks like maybe it's the right length, I guess that one is. So,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, again, if I could.
I'm with you, I'm like, if you could get a foot,
I think
get a wall in there, I don't know really what You're never gonna get the 5 foot landscape strip with that.
Certainly.
You're not gonna get both.
But you're not gonna see, where's the 5 foot landscape strip on which side?
Well,
You wouldn't get it on either side, because you go down 30 feet.
yeah,
Yeah, so.
yeah, isn't that how, the way it would lay out? Here, isn't the typical scenario is the wall on the property line and the
Yep.
5 foot strip
Yep.
is inboard or outboard?
Inboard.
On the property, subject property.
Yep.
So the 5 foot
So she would
landscape
see
area is adjacent
landscape
to the
unless
property
it had
line.
trees.
And the fence is inboard then.
It can be
It
however.
does not have to be.
Doesn't have to be, in this case, east or west of the 5 foot landscape area. It could be down the center, it could be offset. But it also says that you plant a evergreen tree every 25 feet, so you gotta have,
Not that, yeah, that's where you need to have 5 feet to do it.
so, yeah.
And so you can't put the fence in the middle.
Right.
I mean, I guess the way I see it, like what's shown on the east side up there with the angled parking makes sense because you can landscape in between each one of those. You can pop a tree in. That makes sense. I think we just gotta accommodate something on the other neighbor's side. And I don't know that it needs to be huge. I do hear it that if I'm trying to back my F-350 dually out of one of these spots because I was foolish enough to pull in there, I'm hammering that fence because I'm backing out trying to get out of there. So to force some space that bumper kind of goes over.
And it's not a screen, it's kind of just it's a buffer, because really,
barrier.
the only plant that would really is put a carpus, but then the exhaust from cars, it's just gonna burn it out and it's not gonna look good anyways, but that, I mean, that would give you height of a screening. But that's
Well,
not,
eventually they become large trees.
Yeah.
If they're left long enough for enough prune, but.
so it would have to be lower, so I mean, otherwise, yeah, the people will back in. They will use that in there.
Even if it was.
Well, in
fine.
theory, you could have something low and the car could overhang it.
Yes, right.
You know, but does that really do you any good? I mean, what is if
It's
you
not
got
a
a
book.
low shrub in the inside screening, I mean.
Oh, yeah, I don't know that it's really screening. I'm saying that fence becomes the screening.
It
And
protects
that
the
little
fence.
landscape strip is protecting the fence.
Is there any way we can request a taller fence, or does that, that has to go back then to BZA?
The
If we were to-
CT.
You know, if we were to say we'd like a 8 foot fence instead of I don't know, that seems like because a wall can require more. Horizontal
Well, it's a
space.
little bit of give and take. You're giving on 5 foot.
What do you say? That's gotta be a masonry wall. We gotta do that as an 8-inch block stucco wall right down there. And they back into that, it's not gonna fall over initially.
I mean, if you're,
They can hit before it goes.
let's say the retail, or is someone, if they're going to the store for the first time, they're not gonna know this parking's associated with it. So really, this is more of repetitive use and people learn how to navigate a parking lot versus new users, which yes, you still will get people in there. But as a parking lot, you just, I've seen 9 foot driveways downtown and you just learn to deal with it,
Mhm.
Would it be staff only? I mean, would there be signage that would send one of the retail visitor?
There could easily be a sign
customer there?
restricted parking for 1091 King
It
Street.
could be, I mean. But ideally, the folks really.
I mean, you've got on-street parking on King, right? I mean,
So the CT zone district is NA as far as fence height, not applicable, so it could be 8 foot.
Well, I mean, I
to your
just,
point, I don't see that. I think it is people who are using that lot.
Like you
Yeah.
can tell if you're a
day
first,
by day.
if you're going there the first time, you're not gonna know the lots there. If you're a repeat customer, you then learn that the lots there, or depending on what type of.
And you would choose whether to park there or not, like on Leon's. Like Leon's has a real lot. It's super, I mean, how can you, if you have a big, whatever vehicle you talked about, you're not gonna park it in that lot, because you're not gonna fit. And it's gonna be, a 20-point turn to get out.
Right, and this whole neighborhood has so much more activity than it used to. In term, so much more usage and so many more places people are going, and parking demand certainly increased a lot over the last 10 years. So we have a new use for the mosque site.
I think that it is zoned for the use that they're requesting. I think if you impose that 5-foot buffer, I guess you have to go on both sides, then you've taken away the option of that use. So I think that it does meet the test. I think that we can ask for that new wall and barrier. And I think that, if it's 2-3 feet, whatever it is, they make it work.
We'll see if there are any trees planted along that side, they're just gonna get hit. So I have to see that as
Yeah.
something that doesn't make
I think
any
it's like
sense at all.
Like a variety or like a
Yeah, but then what does that do? What is that? That doesn't do anything. for the-
If I may,
visual buffer.
I have a suggestion
Okay.
as I think about it. As a condition or a modified condition, you can condition a living fence on the west side, but the living fence would be constructed of 6-inch steel post with galvanized wire and then put a vine on it. I'm thinking out loud. You're trying to protect the neighbor's fence, so somebody's gonna be a little cautious not to hit a steel post. And then in lieu of, having panels, you could run the galvanized wire through it. A good fence manufacturer could do that, and then they plant a vine and it turned green.
What happens if a car runs into my house between those posts?
Well, you would have wire, and I think somebody would be kind of cautious seeing this element, pretty stout looking element there, that they wouldn't want to damage their fender or whatever.
They said in a meeting that there's going to be a restaurant there and people who are using the restaurant will be using that parking lot, so they'll be drinking, and who is monitoring who's coming and going? If there's an accident, who do you call?
The police.
All right. So I like the, we'll go back. I think that new fence, Eric's idea, living fence, whatever it is, some sort of vine, makes sense to me.
I mean, I'd go for a fence and put the round concrete posts in the ground.
And the public part is done.
All right.
So I think she's saying a taller fence.
Now, if you're being addressed, you can answer.
Yeah, you're saying a taller fence running along that property line. See, to me, the 8-foot fence seems to make sense, just because it's higher, it screens her property a little more.
Since we can't have trees on this
Right.
side, and we do have them on the other side, so that's.
And then you'd have a bigger post. You have an 8x8, not a 6x6.
And that footprint is smaller, so I mean, you're not losing.
And you're not losing maneuverability space. Because I see that as a problem. I question whether traffic and transportation is gonna let me back out on it, because this doesn't have to go to.
We had a sketch plan Wednesday, and I think the idea for those northern spots is that you don't do your K turn right there. You back down the aisle into that space to get yourself forward. I think
So we might as well just get rid of the hash.
this is the all-purpose like turnaround. So you're here, you back in, you don't try and do it here. They're providing that space midway for everybody. If you're here, what you want to do is you pull up.
Yeah,
you
but are
back
we
in.
keeping the tree there?
Well, there's a hackberry here.
How
which
far back?
It's in this corner.
Okay.
It's on another exhibit.
So they could put a tree guard around it or something.
It's kind of,
Okay.
What do y'all think what's the con to a masonry 8-foot fence? Or I guess more, I'm talking wall.
It's a little thicker. I mean.
You need
it's a
footers.
little-
Yeah, you're gonna have a continuous footer and that's just gonna squeeze it in.
Pick up more.
Whereas y'all are thinking a post with wood panel or the living fence between the something like 6x6 or 8x8.
I'm thinking 8 foot tall fence, because they don't have the height requirement, doesn't have to be 6 feet. It gives a little more privacy to the yard, right?
Mhm.
An extra 2 feet. You're not taking as much horizontal space. So you have the maneuverability.
Mhm.
I'm just.
It would still have to go through, so. It would still have to get approved, because the new fence for,
Well, it wouldn't have to go to zoning
Not
because
to-
commercial transitional, you could do the 8 foot.
gotcha, okay.
But, this is a small, it's not a TRC.
I can't recall what we decided as a group. Because they do have to do some land disturbance with the handicap space, and so.
If we went that route, I just want to specify what the infill is. The living fence could be a bunch of different.
We can put that on
They
there.
do
Review fence design.
this way.
I don't know, I mean, you weren't thinking 8 foot tall living fence, though, you're thinking slat going up 8 feet.
Mhm.
And
Oh, okay, I was,
They could almost just put a lattice on one side and the stuff could go up through.
I just don't see planting there. At all,
so just the 8 foot fence,
but I mean, unless it was the living fence. But then, those have their issues.
and they take time.
Yeah, what are the panels, like 10 foot? You could put a bollard in between those panels on this
Yeah, you
side.
could, it's center
and
beach.
Not, takes away some of that. For a little bit of a concern about backing into it.
Well, you could put them,
I'm
and then you
picturing
have
that-
the
I'm
3 foot setback on
Mm.
lot lines, it makes it really difficult, right? Anyway, for privacy and for keeping the stuff from your yard.
So an 8 foot fence is just kind of helping with privacy, it's not necessarily helping with if people are gonna. back
Right, I
into
mean,
it.
but if you have an 8 by 8, you're less apt to knock it down than a 6 by 6
Mhm.
or 4 by 4. You have a chunkier post. But that could always be a condition as if they have to submit. You have to design for that back end for staff review. I mean, they have the right to do, like you said, they have the right to do this because the law is zoned for it. So that's how it comes to us.
Yeah.
They have the right to build a taller fence because it's commercial transitional. It doesn't work to flip it. It loses spaces and we have those existing trees. Because the commercial transitional, I would think, I forget offhand, but that would require, has some requirement for the protected, so.
That's right, I just did the math, it's 2.4 trees they need to support, so they have, we round up, so the 3 trees are protected.
Would y'all be, I guess. Would y'all be amenable to do the fence or a wall or whatever we come to, or should we consider deferring and let y'all come up with an alternate?
Right, and that way you could design something that you like the idea of better.
I think the idea of doing another fence over there is fine. I think that,
I mean, working with the neighbor and removing the, is what I was thinking.
No, I leave hers there.
You'd leave hers
Leave
there,
hers there.
that's fine.
Yeah, she wants her fences too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, just having seen 8x8 columns in a project that we just did, they're massive. I would think that, a 6x6 would be plenty big, something that no one would want to hit. And a series of 6x6 posts running down the lot with a hard rail running along at like bumper
Like a
height
bumper.
would certainly do the job. You're gonna hit that. And that would seemingly be something that would prevent the concern about the fence being hit. So I think that would be good from our end. We'd rather do that.
We're talking a double fence because the existing is staying.
And they could take it down over time. They maybe the homeowner can do whatever they want.
I think you could, like Amanda said, I think the fence design could be required to have staff approval to it.
Mhm. Okay, I make a motion, can you go back to the staff recommendations before I do that? Okay, I make a motion that we add to the staff recommendations and conditions that we add number 4 to be, that we require an 8-foot fence and a curb along the base of the fence, and for the design to be submitted to staff for the fence for staff approval. So it doesn't have to come back to the board.
Just to be clear, you mentioned a curb or a
Bumper rail.
8-foot fence,
He
very
said
well
rail.
designed.
I was taking that as a
Post and a
I would
curb.
call it a rail at curb
At bumper height.
At bumper height,
of a car
maybe.
bumper,
18, 20 inches.
right?
So they would have post panels and then on the bumper, they'd have an additional stout member or something that bumper would hit. Okay.
to be designed it's by applicant and submitted to staff. Because it doesn't need to come back here.
All right, so
Is that clear enough?
motion for approval with staff conditions, adding item 4, 8-foot tall fence. With a
Lower rail.
lower rail, and design to be submitted to staff for approval. For a second.
A second.
All right. All right, so all in favor of that motion? I in favor, any opposed? That is approved. Thank you.
That's your money's worth. No, that's.
So happy to be back for this command performance.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're done, right? The sound's off.